Tisk, tisk, tisk. Right? Tisk, tisk, tisk. What happened on January 6th, known as the January 6th Insurrection, right? Remember, the 6th of November, right? That is how they want you to remember that day. However, I think it's time that you hear what Mr. B has to say about that day, right? So I denounce any and all forms of violence that's not called for, right? That's not, self defense or, other type of situation, right? There's a time to protect yourself, and there's a time that your ass will get arrested for doing something you're not supposed to do, right? So, on this podcast, I'm going to be addressing January 6th and my take on it, right? So, obviously, the news showed you guys, pictures, videos, accounts of from Congress people inside Capitol Hill, right, of that day of what had transpired. We all know a bunch of people allegedly were there. They made entry to the building. They took over the building. Somebody got shot, unfortunately, and that was that. That was in a nutshell. But I think you guys need to understand something, right? So I'm going to give you my, my take on the whole January 6th um, incident, insurrection, right? So I believe that conditions were created for it to unfold in the manner in which it did. Again, I believe conditions were created so that, well, which resulted in the way, it turned out, right? So if you think about some of the, you think about the hearings, right? And then you think about eyewitness testimonies and things like that, right? People are raising the question, were there federal agents in the crowd that day that maybe enabled the situation, right? Made the situation worse than what it was, right? So if you think about it, right? President Trump, it is an established fact that we know he requested for additional manpower to be able to be there that day to assist with security and crowd control. Such was denied. That is an established fact. We know that already to be a fact. Not only that, he has, for the last, 4 years, he's left up on his social media accounts where he was calling for everyone to remain peaceful, to gather. They're going to have an event, blah, 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 right? He intentionally left it up on his social media for a point, right? To show he was calling for, peaceful congregation, right? Unfortunately, conditions were created where maybe some die-hard fans got a little bit too much involved, more than they should have. But if we think about it, right, is it possible that the police and the feds had individuals in the crowd, right? Of course they did. Of course they did. I'm not saying that they intentionally enabled this situation, but if you think about something, is it not possible that maybe there was some people who were against Trump, right? And they are agents, police, whatever, in the crowd, and they created a situation. Um, they created a situation that got everyone riled up, right? So if you think about mob mentality, right, and nobody has that I've seen who analyzed or had a podcast or even a news interview, right? Nobody spoke about mob mentality, right? So, mob mentality is when a bunch of people, right, if they're gathered in one location, right, and they're all there for the same cause, right? But then there's some type of emotional or psychological impact, right? Or something that gets everybody going, right? And the next thing you know, the crowd is going in the same direction as the people who started. Just saying, let's say, okay, we're at a sporting event, right? And everybody chants, "Go, go!" One person starts chanting, "Go, go, go, go." The next thing you know, the whole stadium is chanting, "Go, go, go, go." That's really mob mentality in and of itself. Now, if we had some rogue individuals, right? Rogue actors, whether they're opposing party paid for actors or corrupt agents or anything like that, and they started some nonsense, knowing that the crowd was already upset. Knowing that the crowd was already upset, right? Could it not be possible that they enabled the situation, right? Is it possible? It's 100% possible. I'm not saying that was the case there, but it's a possibility, right? And it should have been looked into, and I hope it's looked into, a little more. But now, when I say conditions were created, right? So now we know there's mob mentality. There's a whole bunch of upset, irate individuals, maybe, who their only intent was just to gain entry into it's the people's building, first of all. So maybe there's all these upset people, they gain entry, but how the hell did they get into the building, right? Initially, right? Initially, you will see the report shows that Capitol Hill Police started letting people into the building in small droves, right? Then what had happened, right? They let people in the building. Then, can anyone else tell me then what happened? Then they started having the police come out in riot gear and all this other stuff, telling people now you can't go into the building, right? And then people, they were like, hey, look, you let other people in the building, we're going in the building too. Next thing you know, here comes the tear gas. Here comes the batons and pepper spray, right? And then it was initially reported that the police were the aggressors thereafter. That also pissed off people even more. So they're like, now you let people in the building. Now you're hitting us with pepper spray and batons. You know what? We're going in the building. Next thing you know, it's all out fighting. All out fighting everywhere, everywhere. They're pushing Capitol Hill Police back. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're breaking the windows. Everybody's running around, this, and this. And the next thing you know, they're inside of the building, right? Then you have maybe some, like I said, diehard fans, individuals, maybe extremists, because extremists exist on all sides, right? You can't just say all Trump supporters are extremists, right? There's extremists on all sides, including Biden's side, Obama's side when he was president. There will always be extremists, right? So now these extremists, let's call them, they gain entry. Next thing you know, they're in the offices, which I don't agree. Why are you going into people's private spaces, right? Then they're in the the actual hall, and they're doing this and doing that, and next thing you know, they're in the chambers, right? So it's very unfortunate what had transpired, but it is my personal opinion that people were enabled, conditions were created, people were taken advantage of, right? People were led into the building, then they weren't allowed to go in the building, and next thing you know, pepper spray, tear gas, and I mean, mob mentality. The mob will stick together and go in the same direction. Now, what happened if the leader of that mob, right? Whoever started the initial push, who are they, right? Is it not possible that there could have been paid operatives in that crowd? It is possible. We don't know. Answers need to be, people need to look into that still, right? I know it's long and gone, but it's still in the headlines, it's still in the media, you know, but you really need to look at mob mentality. So That's what I think happened, right? Just like I said, I don't agree with everything that unfolded that day, especially not, you know, violence on all sides and trespass really once you go and start going into people's offices and all that shouldn't have been done, and those people need to be really prosecuted. They need to serve some time in jail so they can reflect on the manner of which they conducted themselves that day in Capitol Hill. So and then they say, well, Trump enabled them. Trump told them to do this. We're going to get Trump, right? You got Nancy Pelosi sitting in her car as she's being whisked away saying something along the lines of it was all him. He knew what he was doing. Meanwhile, he told your ass in advance, look, we need people there, right? And even the commander said, yeah, they were requested, but Congress people didn't make it happen, right? Capitol Hill people didn't make it happen. So right then and there, we already knew that they were going to blame Trump for this, but obviously he wanted people. He even said it: be there peacefully. Do not attack the police. Do not destroy property, right? And unfortunately, it happened. It happened, right? But he did the best that he can do in that situation, right? Some people will say he knows what he was doing. Well, are you in his brain? I mean, can you do you have mind control? Do you know, right? Based on the evidence, and that's what we need to go off of. That's what had happened. You know, he said, everybody be peaceful, don't destroy property, respect the police, da 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 da. So to pass off January 6th on being a Trump insurrection is really wild, right? Because if you think about everyone else, right, who's actually called for violence, right? Maxine Water, or whatever her name is, Maxine Waters, get up in their face, confront them. You make a crowd, right? Take him out tonight, right? While the riots were going on with BLM, Black Lives Matter, and all this other Antifa, right? Those Democrats really in Congress were really enabling people to burn down damn cities, playing on their emotions, right? So if you want to talk about domestic terrorism and insurrection, you really need to look at those Congress people who got up there and was telling people go out and actually get up in their face and this, and I want to take him out behind the barn, and this and that. And then you have all these celebrities that were actually calling for violence and harm to President Trump at that time. So people really need to look at themselves before they start calling out other people, because Trump is on record saying peacefully protest, respect the police, don't damage property. Meanwhile, you got other people who said basically burn the city down, right? So that's my whole take on January 6th. Obviously, I said I don't agree with unjust violence and things like that. So I don't think it's the end of it. Meaning it's not ever going to be brought up in the news. No, it definitely will. And I just hope next time people just behave themselves. Don't let other people convince you to do things that you don't want to do. Just don't go with the mob, right? There was thousands of other people there who didn't go into the Capitol Hill. It's only just a handful of 100-something people who maybe were, I don't want to say weak-minded, but just upset. They let the emotions get the best of them, and next thing you know, they're tearing down doors, right? So be careful in all the things you do, everybody. So that's just my take on it, and tune into the next podcast, right? So until then, I will see you later.